Hello, everybody. Welcome back to DM Writer's Room. We're doing Helvetica / The Blood Sun, Episode 2. Last week, if you missed it, we are working on a Morkborg hack set in a dystopian modern day alternate reality where you are in a city named Helvetica, which is slowly but surely becoming overrun by monsters. So Morkborg, if you don't know about that, is a highly lethal, grim, dark setting, typically set in a fantasy medieval world. Ours, with the more modern setting, you're going to play like Joe the pizza guy, and you are confronting the apocalyptic harbingers of doom is what's going on here. You're trying to buy as much time as possible before the blood sun rises and your city is doomed to a the hands of Fang, a military governmental organization which is set about to stopping the apocalypse in general. So you're buying as much time as possible, living in Helvetica, keeping the horrors at bay until the blood sun rises, and then you got to get out of Dodge, or you need to hold Fang back as long as possible to let more people escape. Ethan, anything I missed in what we're working on today, feel free to take it away.
No, yeah. So I don't really think you missed anything particularly substantial there. We worked out a lot in the last stream, so if you missed that, there are some of the bones here that obviously came from there. We came up with ideas for the different neighborhoods that you could be interacting with. Started outlining the classes and got a pretty good grip on what those are going to be, and started to talk about the larger scheme of the game and what we think the central themes are. We are going to open today with clarifying questions. There are just some things that we need to clear up as far as like the larger game is concerned, and then we are going to move on to content that we haven't really interacted with. Mainly, I'm hoping to get to the monsters today and to talk about how we want to populate some of these tables, right? Morkborg, one of the real good strengths of Morkborg is that if you want to, you can random roll your entire character in 3 minutes. If you don't, you can optimize. And that is something that is clear as you examine the game more closely. There is a way to play it that is much more survivable, where characters will not die every single session by default. You can play choosing a lot of your things very carefully and building a character that is a little more survivable, or sort of embrace the chaos, random roll characters. We had a pretty fun Morkborg one-shot where we random rolled pretty much everything, and Spencer's character survived the entire time, and somebody else you see on this network, Stefan's character, Stefan went through 4 characters in one game of Morkborg, and every room they went into there was a new person that apparently decided to be Spencer's character's new best friend. And so that was really fun, and sort of what drew us to the game. We are increasingly, despite our great love for D&D and D20 systems in general, finding ourselves sort of gently leaning towards some of these other lighter systems. I think that's kind of inevitable as you get tired of kind of the rules baggage of these heavier systems. So the main things I need to clarify, one is we need to talk about how we want our classes, what their sort of core function should be. And then we also need to talk about spells. So I've done the long and very boring work of loosely balancing a bunch of spells based on the variety available in Morkborg. Because one of your goals when you're making a hack of a game, again, this, if I sound like I'm explaining a little too much, one of the goals of this show is for future generations to be able to demystify DMing and game prep a little bit. So unfortunately, we kind of do have to talk about some of the less interesting stuff. A lot of what it is for spells is just looking at the breakdown of spell functions in Morkborg, because we want somebody who is used to playing Morkborg to be able to pick up this game and not be confused. For the example there, in Morkborg, there are 2 healing spells, 1 reviving spell, 5 damaging spells, 3 control spells, 1 summoning spell, 6 utility spells, and 2 buffs, if you were to classify them. And so I went down and made a pretty boring and not flavorful list of like 1d6 damage, 1d6 healing. But that does leave a question unaddressed, which is Spencer was very specific last time that he thought magic should be dead in this world. It should not function. Damaging magic maybe still exists, but healing magic is totally out. Now, some amount of healing for balance needs to exist if this game is going to be a hack of Morkborg. Morkborg has healing. There are classes that can heal in small amounts, and there are spells that heal in small amounts. And so I've been trying to think of ways to sort of work around that, and I want that to be sort of the first thing we talk about. My first knee-jerk thought was, we don't have spells, we have artifacts or items, right? No new magic is cast, but old magic still exists. So there's no such thing as finding a spell that lets you launch lightning bolts and memorizing it in the D&D sense, or keeping a hold of the scroll in the Morkborg sense. Instead, you would find an amulet that lets you do those things. You would find, the pinky bone of Saint Tyrannus who was killed by a lightning strike. Something like that. That was my initial sort of like first thought. And my only other thought was the only way to do magic is to draw on the Blood Sun. And so there would always be a pretty heavy cost associated with it, because you aren't drawing on, like, the magic of your own world. You are drawing on the magic of this alien other that poses an existential threat to your world. How do we feel about that?
What is the clean and unclean scroll difference in Morkborg Prime?
Yeah, so there's no sort of logistical difference. Like, using the two different powers doesn't incur anything different from the two. What it is essentially is sacred scrolls sort of lean towards cleric, and unclean scrolls lean towards arcane. That is for the most part. So unclean scrolls let you do things like move objects with your mind, hover, strangle creatures with your mind, summon skeletons, do damage in a large circle, become invisible. Sacred scrolls let you heal, create bright light for 3d10 minutes, detect traps, speak to animals. They sort of lean in that other direction. So it's mostly just flavor. Half of them seem to be a little bit more in line with this, like, clerical magic, and the other half seem a little darker.
Yeah, I do think that arcane magic coming exclusively from the Blood Sun, great. I don't think the world typically has magic. This is alternate reality Earth. It's not really high fantasy. The Blood Sun is giving this magic. Whether that's still through, like, items that are imbued or through magical casting, I don't know. It's probably like some ritual. So you find something that tells you how to do it, and then you can do it once, and it's erased from your mind. Whatever. For healing magic, I still think that there shouldn't be much of that. But for balance purposes and for class details, I would just make it a version of medical training.
Sure.
You don't rip open a scroll of healing, you slap a bandage on your ally, and now they get an additional 1 hit point or 2 hit points or whatever.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
Okay. Yeah, so I'm cool with that, and I maybe if we add that as a separate mechanic, maybe that's something you can do with omens in our version of the game. Maybe we could cut them all together. I'm not opposed to that. So the 2 healing spells that are available in Morkborg, fun fact, Morkbore, I think it means dark fort in whatever language it is, in its language of origin. So is Sacred Scroll 1, Grace of a Dead Saint. D2 creatures regain D10 HP, which is a pretty big heal for Morkborg. Your health's not, especially at level 1, is usually like between 2 and 8. A good slice from a sword will kill pretty much any character in Morkborg if things go wrong. And then Aegis of Sorrow, a creature of your choice gains 2d6 extra HP for 10 rounds. So that's more of a buff than healing. It's basically giving you what in D&D terms we would think of as temporary HP. My nerf of those, which we don't need to keep, my thought was replace Grace of a Dead Saint, and rather than healing D2 creatures for D10 HP, you can either heal 1 creature for 1d6 or pay d6s of damage to heal more than that. So you could heal 1d6 for nothing, or you could heal 2d6 and you will lose 1d6 of your own health as a wound. again, we don't
Mm.
have to keep that. It was just my initial thought of trying to tap into what you were thinking with like turning up the cost pretty exponentially. And to replace the sort of gains 2d6 is basically a cheaper form of death ward. You are warded at 1. So the first time your health would drop to lethal, you would go to 1 instead. Those were the thoughts that I had, but we certainly don't need to keep those. If we think that healing magic should be cut altogether, I'm not opposed to it.
No, I like your workaround. I think that works well.
Okay, so I'm tempted to say then, if we want to do the same delineation, right, if we want to split these things, what if, I think I like that the magic of the Blood Sun replaces this sort of arcane area, right? This is where most of your damage is coming from. And I think we replace the sacred scrolls with items of old. I think that all of those come from these artifacts, including these weak healing effects.
Yeah.
You are no longer able to perform miracles of that sort, but there are some lingering traces of power, which would help explain why you have to sort of take damage onto yourself like that.
And if we're talking about a campaign of Morkborough, you go to St. Peter's Cathedral in Helvetica as a job to get this healing scroll because you know you're going to go do something crazy the next session.
Yeah.
Right? It gives a reason to go places to accumulate items.
And also, it's important to note in Mortborg and in our hack, we are going to keep all the rules the same. So you have to make a presence test to use any of these items. And if you fail, it's not good. You are dizzy for the next hour and you lose health. You lose D2 HP, which doesn't sound like a lot, but you can start Mortborg with 1 max health. That can happen in the game. Okay, so the next area that I think we need to address before we can move on is are the classes. Mainly, like, how do we see these wanting to function? So just to refresh everybody's memories, our character classes are the Touched, those who have been affected by the Blood Sun and now seek to destroy it before they are driven to hunger or whatever. The Servant, a local figure trying to bandage the wounds of their city before its inevitable end. The Street Tough, or just the Street, a sort of rogue adjacent character, somebody who attacks by surprise and uses cheap tricks to get what they need. The Soldier, a sort of a bloodbound bruiser type of character. The Heretic, which is somebody who is studying this magic. And then my personal favorite, our 6th class, the Everyman. The flavor text I have for them is, good luck. You are the everyman, the jack of no trade, burn bright in these dying days.
Hell yeah.
I would play an everyman every campaign forever and die in the first 30 minutes. But so what we need to talk about is how do we want these bad boys to function? Like, how do we want them to work? So, for example, the Fanged Deserter in Morkborg is one of the classes. It's the one that starts with the most HP and is their version of the Soldier. All of the powers that they have are magic items. If you look through, none of their abilities, none of their powers are like regain or like second wind or action surge. It's the brown scimitar of Galgenbeck, a crumpled monster mask, a bag of wizard's teeth, an old sling, an ancient hound, or the shoes of Death's horse. So that's an example of what I'm talking about. So the way that troop works is they use shit that they have found while exploring. The very next one, the Gutterborn Scum, which is sort of their rogue, absolutely has abilities. They have Coward's Jab, they have Filthy Fingersmith, excretal stealth. They can sneak in sewers and piles of garbage and shit easier. Escaping fate. Every time you use an omen, there's a 50% chance it is not spent. So, contrary to them, the Gutterborn Scum totally, seemingly just has powers that they can employ. And I'll try to only go over a few more. So, like, the Esoteric Hermit has pretty explicitly has powers. They are able to call forth magic. The Wretched Royalty, it's all items. It's all items and people that they travel with. So it seems to sort of sort into those categories. There are classes that have abilities they use, and then there are classes that have stuff that they use to employ. And pretty much nobody steps out of that framework, which is great because it means we can steal that framework. We don't need to think about it too hard. We just need to pick who's who in Morkborough, which I'm increasingly thinking is going to be the name we're going to go with because it sounds really fun to say.
Yeah.
So the touch, the servant, the street, the soldier, the heretic, everyman. I think we can eliminate the most obvious one. I think the heretic probably has stuff.
Yeah.
For my money, that just makes the most sense. The heretic is our presence class. They are driven by their ability, however limited it may be, to do magic. And so they would function with these like magic items and scrolls that they are, using to help them survive.
Same category. I think soldier has stuff.
Sure. Stuff. Yeah. It would be like,
body armor, or well, that's not one of them, but shit like that.
Yeah, just with like a little bit of zest on it. Like body armor of a fallen companion is good, right? This blood-soaked armor has been imbued with a strange tinge of magic. That's great, and immediately functions. And I actually already had as a note for them for one of their powers, DR ? Which for those of you at home always means damage resistance in TTRPGs for the most part. Okay, so we have two of those characters. Do we want to? The Everyman has no powers, so they are out of the running. We don't need to worry about them. So that leaves us.
Street Tough has powers.
Yeah, Street Tough just has powers. That makes sense to me. Powers are, unfortunately, we can't really call them abilities because abilities is the name of your presence toughness, toughness, agility,
maneuvers.
Yeah, maneuvers, abilities. Some iteration on that form. It's fine with me. So magic items, stuff, powers, and abilities. That leaves us with the touched and the servant. I think the touched probably, in my opinion, I think should get powers because they are getting them from this, this alternate source. One of the only notes I have for the powers I think they should have is that one of their options should be form of hunger or form of fear, right? They can turn into the monster.
Embrace the beast.
Yeah, which, depending on how grimdark we want our game to be, the answer probably being quite, I think you probably just roll a d10, and if you roll a 1, you become a monster. And that's the risk. There's no other risk attached to it. It's every single time you make the transformation, you roll a d10. If you ever roll a 1, tear your character sheet in half. You're a monster now. You're done.
And now you fucked your party over, and now they all have to fight, Werewolf John. Good luck.
And whatever you were fighting.
And the thing that you needed to turn into a werewolf to fight.
Which is not probably ideal. That leaves us just with the servant. So we have two classes that are functioning on items and two classes that are functioning on actual abilities that they seem to be able to employ. And I could really see the servant sort of going either way, right? Do they have items? Are they functioning with bandages and things like that, or do they have inspiring leadership? Sort of a more general.
Yeah. What did we make the shtick of the servant?
They are our presence and agility class. They are our sort of quick moving and smooth talking class. Their description is that I have written up based on our notes is this city is your home and you have come to love its people. You put bandages on mortal wounds until the day you must say goodbye. They are sort of your neighborhood leader, community faction head. I was thinking of them as sort of a street medic, to use the kind of protest parlance.
Yeah, I like them as an items user instead of powers player.
Yeah, I was gonna say it would be great if we could, because we're making the game up, we could do a cut down the middle.
Sure, I'll do splits.
They have 4 options, we do 2 and 2, right?
And that gives us a nice even balance. We have 2 item classes, 2 ability classes, 1 mixed class, and then the everyman.
But nothing class.
Yeah, the everyman, who I think is, again, just my absolute favorite. Okay, so those are my big sort of homework notes that we needed to work through. And again, for those of you at home, sometimes you're going to do prep for a campaign or a session, and the thing that's left is the random encounter table. Like, and you're like, great, I can't wait to do CR math for the next 30 minutes to try to get that ready. Yeah, okay. I think that all looks really good to me. So now we can sort of move on to any other of our sort of tables that are not yet covered. So I think our most important ones are the monsters and followers, which are sort of united together as they are next to each other in the Morkborg book. For sheer fun factor, magic fumbles, what happens if you crit fail magic, is a whole table in the book. I think that could be fun. And then we have a gigantic one, which is 4 D20 tables for character generation. It is traits, looks, personality, and backgrounds. So it is a lot of meat and potatoes to get done there.
I think monsters and followers.
Okay, we'll just see how many we can get through between now and 32 minutes from now. Okay, so monsters and followers. Morkborg comes with 12. I think that is one of the sort of weaker aspects of Morkborg. It's not really a lot of variety. You're not going to run into a lot of those creatures, and you're going to run in. Sorry, flip that. You're going to run into a lot of those creatures, and only 12 options, many of which are a wyvern, are meant to be sort of comically deadly. You're going to have trouble interacting with. So we specified last time that we wanted our monsters to come in sort of 3 tiers. The first one are these direct reflections of the will of the Blood Sun. They are manifestations of fears or monstrous archetypes for the world. Below them are your sort of highbrow, very classic monsters that are so well known and believed in that they are real, right? The Blood Sun makes them so. And then below them are your sort of minion varieties. And we kind of talked about working in little trees of, probably 6 monsters a tree. 1 at the top, 2 below it, 3 below them across the sweep. Hunger, and the uncanny are the 2 that we sort of kept drawing to last time. The hunger is your vampire and your werewolf, I think is the most essential, right? Hunger for blood, hunger for flesh/violence. And I think that both of those fit into that really well. If you wanted to run an especially dark game, something we're not really dealing with, obviously, as we talk about it, is Morkborg has some, definitely delves into some themes of, sexual violence that we don't really feel like going into, but if you wanted that to be a part of your home game, obviously the vampire reflects that more so than the werewolf, and it is implicit. The uncanny, is John Carpenter's The Thing. It is, the shape-shifting creature that follows. It is the shadow that just eats a person whole, right? It is this outer thing. That leaves us sort of with those 2, and I think at least 1 more. Maybe 2 or 3 more. And this was one of the things that we, although it was not mandatory, I said, if you would like to bring one of those, a thought, I think that would be a pretty good idea.
Yeah, I'll give mine. Mine isn't fully fleshed out because I thought we could do some of that ourselves here on the show, but it is helplessness, like an inevitability, right? So I was thinking things like drowning, old age, shit like that. So it would be like mermaids, or what's the name for the thing that sings? Sirens, right? That would be one of the things where it draws you in, you are taken over, and then you drown. Old age, I was like, I don't know how that would work. There's not like Constitution saving throws to keep yourself from getting aged up. I can't think of any specific monsters that do that.
Yeah, I mean, there absolutely is in Morkborg. You could really easily call for a player to make... Let me get up to our attribute page here. You could call for a player to make a toughness test. Toughness, resist poison, cold, heat. you know?
There you go.
So it would be, this creature focuses on somebody, make a DR 14 toughness test. If you fail, your character ages 1d10 years, and you just sort of plug away at that. What I like about that is it's purely existential, right? It's hard to reflect in your HP, but it is funny for your character to suddenly be violently aging forward.
Yeah. So I think that is I'm going to call it the siren. It's something that is controlling your body or your mind or your lifespan, shit like that.
Interesting. Okay, I'm gonna have to sling it. So I was going to go with the controller or the corruptor, which I was seeing as sort of like one-to-one kind of a mind control type thing, right? Things that rob you of your will. But it sounds like that is exactly what we have both brought. So I will lean towards my other two. My other two ideas that I left on the cutting room floor are fear of the dark and fear of the unknowable. And I think I will lean, sort of this fear that is, at least in the American tradition, right, motivated by race, and then later turns into a little bit of a more nuanced and interesting thing as time passes and people start to really, wrap themselves around it a little bit. But it starts with H.P. Lovecraft being afraid of, like, the spread of mixed race couples in a very real way, and sort of exchanges out for other groups. So I think I'm going to go with, because I think dark sort of lands in that, I am going to go with fear of the unknowable. Which to me is different than fear of the uncanny. Fear of the uncanny is fear of those things which are almost normal. Fear of the unknowable is fear of those things which are the opposite of normal. Michael, I know you are the busiest of us. Did you have a thought kicking around that?
Yeah, so I got two ideas that I was kicking around with. And the one kind of falls into the fear of the uncanny, fear of the unknown almost. And it's like the perfect shapeshifters. Like if things could come and kill something and then take over their life as that person.
Okay.
That was the first thought. The second thought was bear with me. It's kind of the fear of eternity. And the thought I had with it were Medusas being trapped in stone for eternity.
So it seems like the Mayo bloodline has a deep fear of helplessness, because you guys seem to really be in the same spot mentally. I think that I like both of those ideas for monsters, and we have a lot of monsters to generate, so I certainly appreciate that. Okay, so we've got this. So looking around here at what we have. So we have a couple that are basically done for us, right? So we have the hunger, and for that two category split, we sort of like the vampire and the werewolf, right? And then below the vampire and the werewolf, I think the first one that comes to mind for me is our sort of vampire spawn. I will dub it the Renfield, right? It is this person who has been given a fragment of power in exchange for hunger. Are there any other sort of minions of hunger that we can think of? My mind is going to like... It is going to like rats. It's going to like wild dogs. It's going to these things that are only possessed, like rabies, right? Rabid animals. It's sort of going to these... Yeah, these beings that are only possessed of hunger. Like they don't have anything else.
I think that Renfields, I think zombies or ghouls, which is enrabed people, if we're breaking it down to what zombies really are.
Sure. Yeah, I'll do the ghoul / zombie in the middle. That makes perfect sense to me, right? This thing that is not even willfully doing these things anymore. It is implied maybe that it is dead already.
Yeah. And then I do think it's wild dogs. That's easy.
I'll pencil it down as the scavenger sort of archetype, right? This sort of like individually not dangerous, in a pack very dangerous sort of mentality. Everybody loves a swarm. That's just something people, that is obviously a fear a lot of people. glom
Are there
onto.
any like vulture monsters?
There could be. We
Yeah.
do have free reign here. So
We would just do, yeah, instead of a pack of, wild dogs, one of the alternatives is a pack of vultures. So it's birds of prey that are attacking you.
So now we have two that are pretty close to each other, and so we have to sort of be careful to delineate them. The uncanny and the helpless are pretty close. As now that I'm like as I think about them, right? So something I do think is interesting is the shapeshifter, right? That I think is a really good example of something that could go either place, right? What is the anxiety with the shapeshifter? Is it the helpless feeling that something could be in amongst you and you wouldn't know, or is it the uncanny fear of the neighbor that stares too long or starts acting
It's
different?
it's the uncanny, I think.
Probably.
Uh, and so if the shifter is sort of one end of that spectrum in the way that the vampire is for hunger, right? This sort of debutante hunger for blood, and the other side is this feral hunger for meat with the werewolf. If our shifter is uncanny in the sort of like, how would you know? Would you be smart enough to notice? What does it mean that they've been replaced? What's the other side of that for the uncanny?
It's unfortunately, I was thinking like environmental shit. It's like this is where you get into liminal spaces. You're on the water and your boat sinks. That's not a monster you can fight. That's not a random encounter. It's
Okay.
just some shit that happens.
Sure. So, oh gosh, what do you even call that? The liminal, I guess, is what we'll have to say.
Yeah.
And I like the idea that we center that in a creature, right? There is a being
Oh,
that,
poltergeist.
yeah, okay, I like that. Yeah, this being that pulls you into this other place, which in our descriptions for this wonderful world of ours are the mainstay threat in where is it in downtown. Liminal halls and dark alleys are stalked by predators of all kinds, right? The fear in downtown isn't that somebody's going to murder you in the street. It is that you are going to vanish, right? You will be taken. You will stop being where you were supposed to be.
It's fine. I don't know how big you guys are into it, but there's some SCPs that do stuff like that.
I've seen some, yeah.
So if the shifter and the liminal are our sort of creatures which are under the big nasty, which would just be the uncanny or the outsider or the false, right? It is this thing that is almost human. It answers the question, why do we fear the uncanny valley? The answer is corpses make you sick. But we're gonna put a more fun answer up in the air. What do we think is under sort of the shifter and what we could call the poltergeist, the liminal? What sort of dwells beneath that?
Under the poltergeist would be shades.
Sure, sort of like, the Hat Man, right? The dark
Yeah.
shadow at the foot of your bed, if it is real, is a uncanny moment. Love that. Have no issue there.
The shapeshifter's tough because shapeshifters specifically function alone. Like that's their entire thing. So thinking of like a secondary beast is hard.
I think I would just go with a weaker version. I'm gonna write, I think, the mocker, right? The sort of mockingbird fear, right? You hear a voice from, this is a creepypasta that you see online all the time, right? You hear a voice calling you downstairs. It's your mother's voice, and then you look over to her bedroom, and the door is cracked, and you see her in her bedroom. She looks afraid but doesn't say anything. That is, I think, a pretty common fear that is not quite the same as someone has been replaced and maybe you're next, right? It's a more antagonistic version of that, but also a simpler one, right? At the end of that creepy story, as much as it's spooky, the answer might be go kill whatever's downstairs with a bat. Like, there's nothing about that makes me think this creature is preternaturally lethal. It just can mimic people, and that is a scary thing for it to be able to do. It's a problem that a gun would solve. In a way that the shifter, I'm left with some questions, right? If it can just change its shape, where do I shoot it? Like, what is important in it?
Yeah, can it change its shape to be 10 times more muscular? Then I'm kind of fucked. What am I gonna do?
A great prompt. This actually for our comedy and those in the future just came up in our home game when Spencer discovered that his changeling character could change their weight at will.
Yeah. Yeah.
Huge implications for your
Crazy.
game if they can just suddenly be 400 pounds and like just shoot down to the ground.
Or 1 pound and just drift in the wind. Feather fall.
Even worse. Yeah, exactly. You'd probably still need to be a survivable weight, but there are people who survive at 60 pounds.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So in between this sort of the mocker, this light version of the shapeshifter, an impersonator, and on the other side, the shade, this thing that steps in darkness that you never really see. What is the middle? Is there a middle ground there for us? My brain is going to the very mundane fear of being stalked.
Yeah.
The version of this phenomena is called gang stalking, which is when people fall under a delusion that a group of people is following them, right? They feel like they are seeing the same cars every day on the road, things like that. That's sort of the version of it that quickly comes to mind for me, the sort of Truman Show varietal.
I would go with a dream monster a la Freddy Krueger, right? The liminal space of a shade being always at night, and the thing that can change form if it's the thing that you encounter while you're asleep, as opposed to the thing you see at night.
Sure.
So you have to deal with it in that way.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just write the Dreamer, because that's pretty good. It just means we can't use that for helplessness down below. So at the top of helplessness, we have the helpless. We have whatever that monster is. Again, we made very clear those monsters are all unique and individual and are somewhat more grandiose than their lower counterparts. I don't even really know if you're supposed to kill them, maybe. We can talk about that. Like, is that on the table? Or is it something that you're trying to hold back or seal? You know what I mean? So
if you kill all the underlings, does it go away in general? Is that what locks it away?
Yeah, because I don't know, there's something a little too heroic for this game about the thought that you're going to kill the uncanny. Just doesn't seem quite on the nose for me. So helplessness, I think we can definitely put the siren up top. Which is just the fear of mind control, the fear that you will be taken over by something else. I think is pretty good.
And we built Helvetica on a little island.
We did.
We needed to have some sort of water monster.
Yes, on the wharf. Where is it? Tales from older hunters swirl around circles of blood in old attics and beasts from the sea. We foresaw our choices here today. So we have the siren. And then I'm gonna put. I fortunately will be borrowing it from Brandon Sanderson's vocabulary here. I'm gonna put the pursuer. And mainly my touchstone on that I've written is the movie It Follows.
Yeah.
The other half of helplessness is a thing that just follows you. You can't kill it. You can't even slow it. You can kind of slow it down, but it is just pursuing you. Ironically, it is what humans fill in the what do you call it?
Pursuit predation.
Yeah, pursuit predation. They just follow things until they fall unconscious. Pretty grim shit. So turning that against us, I think, is pretty interesting. So if the siren is on one end of the spectrum and the pursuer is on the other, the question then becomes sort of what is beneath those things. I would love to say the angler, but that's just the shifter / mocker sort of thought, right? It's the same thing. It's that you are pulled in by something and then attacked. It's more the fear of this unknown predator, I think, than it is of being helpless. I don't know if there's a version of that where it hypnotizes you.
I would do like a phantasmal fog that rolls in. Then you've got, it's similar to like an invisible killer, but you just can't find your way around. You're stuck somewhere. You're looking around. You're separated. You're on the water. You're on the boat. I don't know. You're in the streets, and you're getting ripped up left and right. that's close to the mind control without being just another you lose all faculties.
Absolutely.
It's you lose your sense of position and you're getting
I
attacked.
think I'm going to put that right in the center, and I have a good sort of, well, we might change it later. I will put Carcosa, the city from the King in Yellow, right? You are walking down the street, you turn, and you do not recognize where you are. You turn around, and a man in yellow tatters is following you. He has a knife. Even though you can totally outmaneuver him, you might even be able to turn around and fight him, but you don't know where you are. You don't know what is around you. You are unfamiliar with this world and its rules. Love that.
That's a lot of fun. The only thought I was having was like a Hotel California situation. It's a space that draws you in.
Fucking what is it? The Blue Lotus from Percy Jackson, Hotel California. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's close to the liminal, but very different.
Liminal.
Yeah. No, I think it's different enough to be its own thing. I just need to figure out how to separate it, because the liminal is unattended, and that's what makes it creepy, right? It's if you check into a hotel and discover you're the only person staying there, that is fear of the liminal. If you check into a hotel and one of the people from there seems like they checked in 1935, that's fear of whatever this shit is. Yeah. It's it's The Shining. It's this place you're not supposed to be. So actually, I think that's not bad.
That's helpless. Yeah, that's helplessness,
right? Trespassed.
Yeah.
That's really good. So the trespasser is, this place where you are not supposed to be. You will be lured in by it. Next to that, we have the sort of more predatory, a creature that is able to change the world, that is able to make it so that you can't know where you are and where you're going. So if we sort of push that over towards the siren end of the spectrum, where do we think that sort of leads us? I keep returning to this unhelpful... I'm trying to do it without also moving towards hunger, but I keep coming back to like that horse in Irish folktales where if you get on it, it will die. A kelpie, it'll dive into the water and drown you. I'm going to anglerfish, right? I'm sort of stuck in this, because that to me is sort of the shitty version of a siren song. It's just an item that attracts you rather than a vision or, real, genuine mind control.
Oh, we call that like Lady of the Lake. There's a sword or there's something poking out of the water nearby. Roll to save to not go over. If you do go over, you grab it. It's a fucking mimic.
Yeah, I think the most important distinction there is just if, I guess the equivalent to this, right, would be... No, actually, we don't have this covered yet at all. The thing that's close to it is the scavenger under hunger. But the Lady of the Lake does not eat you. It just drowns you. It has no interest in you.
It wants to kill.
It just has an interest in continuing to do what it does. Okay, super cool. And then a category I'm increasingly less confident in. The unknown. The alien. The outside.
It's hard to differentiate the unknowable, because Cthulhu is the same, essentially, as every other Cthulhu monster, where it's just super fucked up and angry and you don't understand it and it makes you go crazy.
Yeah.
That's my only holdup.
Without being incredibly detailed, right? So the main difference that sort of exists in the popular mythos is between the cosmic and the malicious, right? The cosmic is a being like I'm gonna have to sort of just riff on lore here, so I'll try to be quick. The cosmic is a being like Azathoth, which is this idiot thing beyond the universe that sings and dances and immediately annihilates anything that gets close to it. There's no will there at all. The fact that it destroys things is coincidental. It doesn't hate humanity. It doesn't hate anything. It just is up there and is bad. It's a black hole, right? Black holes don't hate planets. They just eat them. On the other end of that spectrum, is closer to sort of past the Cthulhu mark, but closer to it, is Nyarlathotep, the Black Priest, or the Dark Pharaoh. This is a being that seemingly despises more humans for an unknown reason, but it does. Like, it visibly works to consume and destroy humanity for reasons we don't understand. Those are sort of the two ends of the unknown spectrum. I'm just beginning to wonder if this fits in our setting, and I'm not sure it does. Right? Because what do you do if if a baleful star which hates all men appears in the sky? What do you do?
Yeah, they fucking put up a big mirror and scare it away. Like, yeah.
So, while I think it's a fun option, I think this is the kind of stuff that would show up after the blood sun had risen and set for 7 days, and all 7 seals had been broken, and the sun of our own world vanished, and a bloody sun took its place. I just think these aren't relevant for sort of the living world. I'm tempted to say... Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, I did have an idea when I was thinking about it, when you were talking about Azathoth, and it's the Pied Piper for the group we just went over. The Inevitable, whatever the name is.
Oh, yeah, the Lady of the Lake sort of alternative.
Yeah, exactly. Somebody who is in the town square drawing people into a maddened dance, into a craze. If you're caught in it, you're going to take exhaustion, you're going to lose hit points, whatever, until you kill it.
Great. Yeah, totally. Okay, I actually think that puts us markedly ahead with 18 monsters. So I think we can probably just call it a day there. We have 7 minutes left. I think that might be enough time on the clock to get something done, right? So I think I want to kick it over to one of the things I am most excited for, that I think we can get a couple of good ideas out. What happens if you try to do magic and it doesn't work? This is our magic fumble table, right? Not just failing to do the spell, fumbling it, doing it wrong. My number one question is, do we want to differentiate between our objects of old and our blood sun magic? Do we want to do 10 for each instead of 20 for all? Or do we think that there's just the one table to work off of?
I think 10 and 10.
Okay, cool. I'm fine with that. And do we want to start with the blowback from calling on the blood sun, or do we want to start with the blowback of using these old, forgotten things?
Blood sun, I think, is going to be the easiest. So let's jump in there with 6 minutes on the clock.
Absolutely. So, there's a lot of really good ones of these in Morkborg that I certainly don't hate. However, they don't go with our setting pretty much at all, right? They would stand out a little too much. They'd be a little too problematic too early. With such bangers as 1 by 1 your teeth fall out, long brittle fingernails replace them in your gums. Your eyes burn with insufferable agony, bleeding heavily before loosening and falling from their gory pitch. You continue to see through them wherever they are. And 5 twisted skeletal arms burst from your back. The hands are mischievous, violent, and cruel. Fun. A little...
yeah. I was thinking, like, you lose half your hit points. Your max hit points.
Oh, I want to be clear. None of these are like that.
Yeah.
Some of them have an effect that is close, but slay riddling Coolvan, a strong goblin who holds 3 colorless pearls. There you go. A gnashing, gap-toothed mouth splits open on your neck. It spits out your secrets and inner thoughts. It can be silenced to sleep only with blood. We are sort of in a different territory here.
Yeah, I do like the idea of compulsions. It makes you speak the truth. Like, stuff like that is pretty fun. As opposed to a mouth opening that speaks the truth. It's just you are forced to.
Yeah, the only thing we should decide whether or not we want to keep is if you roll on D20 of Catalyst Woes and you get a 20, you die. The great serpent he emerges from the shadows and eats you.
And I would say you're immolated in red flames as the blood sun takes notice, right?
Yeah, I love that. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and I think we all know that 10 is you are seen and none can survive under the light of the blood sun. Love that.
Mm.
So we can talk generally about like what kind of things we want to do. We only have 4 minutes, or we can just go around the wheel here and each name one.
Let's let her rip. Let's each try and name something. If we can't think of something, we'll go back to not round robin.
Yeah, okay. I will say I think one of them should be you are cursed by a monster and you have a certain number of days to kill it or you will take its place. You will become a monster of some sort. Some version of that curse I think would be fun. You know, you have a certain amount of time to slay a vampire lest you become one.
Little blood curse action.
Yeah. Like a blood curse slash kill the source kind of thing. Because I think it's just fun and forces the players to go do something.
Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, my compulsion to speak the truth, I do think belongs on the other chart for sacred relics.
Sure.
Mm.
I am gonna say I think that your hit points are halved. Your max HP gets dropped. Minimum of 1.
Yeah.
You don't die.
Yeah, you drop to half your HP. Why? What happens?
You are reading off this magic. You're billowing it out of your hands. Your fingers blacken and your muscles atrophy, and you just lose much of your constitution.
Great, love that. All right, Michael. So we have emaciation and a blood curse. Michael, what are you thinking?
I was thinking the exact opposite of what you wanted to happen happens.
That's interesting. Like a recoil.
The spell went off wrong.
Absolutely.
You wanted to cast fireball, it casted water ball. You want to heal somebody, it damages them.
Yeah, like inverted cast.
Exactly.
Love that. I will say my next pick is you are cast in bloody light. A beam of light, seemingly the color of the blood sun, illuminates you from nowhere. I like the idea that this just makes it impossible to hide from Fang. You are noticeable from an incredible distance as somebody who has let themselves be touched by the blood sun. Again, kind of flavor based, but it means that the minute that Fang becomes interested, you are screwed. Like you are on site a problem.
That might have messed up our video.
Okay.
It did, but it is also 8:30. So let's bang out 2 more really quick and then hang up and then wrap the show up.
Yeah, I think mutation. You grow tumors and extra phalanges, etc. As the blood sun's radiation affects you instantaneously. You don't die, you look real fucked up.
Yeah, sort of making normal life difficult very quickly for your character. Cool. And Michael, do you got another one in the tank?
I do. Feel free to say no to this one. Blood Sun Empowerment. You had to pull an extra card, an extra prophecy.
Oh,
gosh.
you've drawn the attention so bad that now another apocalyptic prophecy pops. That's sick.
I love that. Yeah, draw a card. You have personally shortened the life of the city. The end will come that much sooner. Okay, I think that's really solid. We got 6 out of 10 for category 1 and 1 out of 10 because Spencer called one. We figured out our classes. We talked about our magic a little bit, and we nailed down our monsters. We got an idea of what those 18 now we have monsters look like. Maybe more in the future, but we have time to figure that out. We'll probably either pack it up here or pick it up next time with a couple more spells and a couple of personality traits and whatnot. That's really up to us. I think we'll think about that in the interim. I'll say I think this was pretty solid. The music has ended. I would have liked for it to have lasted about 5 more minutes, but that's okay. Spencer, I'm going to kick it over to you to wrap us up here.
Thank you all for tuning in to DM Writer's Room. We do this stream every Thursday from 7 to 8:30 p.m. approximately. We're going to be doing a schedule shift in a couple weeks, but you can catch us Eastern Standard Time doing that. On Wednesdays, we do a D&D 5e actual play in Theros called The Party Makes Things Worse. We do that 7 to 10 p.m. Eastern Standard. You can follow us on TikTok, on Twitch, on YouTube, on Instagram, on Facebook. You can check out our website, tjpk.com. All of our videos, we do memes, we do DM advice, we do articles on how to run games. We do a bunch of stuff like that. So feel free to follow us on all those. Stay tuned, and we'll be coming at you with more videos soon.